It's good to hear you, brother. Yeah, let's have a ball. Here we go.
All right.
Folks, welcome inside the Parisi Palace, high above 3773 East Broadway. This is a live edition of the Jake Feinberg Show, comedy on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live. You can download our free app and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast, the Jim Parisi Show, and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. We can't thank you enough for making this part of your day today, and it's so great to bring back a friend of the program. A guy who has inspired people, healed people through his rhythms, healed himself through his rhythms, has gone through the racket of music knowing that he could walk away from it at any point, but it's a calling. The music is a calling. The compositions are a calling. The train tracks are a calling, and obviously baseball's just we got opening day a couple days ago, and so we got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about. Johnny Vidacovich, welcome back to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Hey, man, thank you for having me back. And, I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, man. I've been keeping up with everything you've been putting out there. And I've been learning a whole lot of stuff. And a whole lot of people got some really, really interesting stuff to say when they talk to you. It seems like sometimes you know somebody, and you know how to push their buttons to get them started. So I have my tip of my hat.
Oh man, but that's that's like it's like baseball with a pitcher. I mean, once you go through the batting order for the third time, you better have some tricks up your sleeve. With the with the Cats, you need to be able to have all five pitches working, and after a while they're out in front, they're popping the ball up, and maybe they're but I'm pushing them out of their comfort zone, and I'm just so glad you're hip to the show, and that's the point is that
it's really beautiful.
And I think the other thing is like your generation. I mean, people say, well, I probably know everything by now. I've heard everything by now, but a lot of the times I try to put stuff up and try to enlighten people. So, I mean, and with that being said, Johnny and I, this is our fourth radio interview. We've also done a couple of Facebook Live interviews, but I just wanted to start this show we have a game on this program called Name That Voice, and I'm going to put this voice in for you, and then we'll come back and break it down, okay?
All right.
I think, first of all, let me say that the academia part, I think of Miles and how he embraced that. Miles was, like Charles Lloyd said, Miles was a lot of different guys, and to a lot of people, he was mistakenly this angry black man who didn't like white people. Nothing could have been further from the truth. And he embraced Gil Evans. Gil Evans was like one of his closest friends in the world, I think, from what I understand. And he loved Gil because he learned from Gil. Miles was always learning, always wanting to learn, and Miles is one of my great heroes. So I've always thought, as far as jazz goes, I've always thought that to learn, to get as much learning as you can about music theory, harmony, all of that will make you only a better player. Look at John Coltrane. I mean, he studied all of his life, and he played like nobody will ever probably play again. There are many people that, I mean, obviously he was such a huge influence. You cannot be a horn player without being affected by him. Playing like him, where people will say you're playing like Train. That's like saying drummers are playing like Elvin or Philly Joe or Gene Krupa or something. Of course, because they set the standard, and but so I feel strongly about education. I feel strongly about academia in jazz. Now, whether or not you have a body of experience, whether or not you somewhere in your life, you're like a Miles, or you're like a Bird, or who, the way you come up. James Brown. We just saw the James Brown movie the other day, and Get On Up, and it's incredible. A lot of people are saying they didn't like it. I love the film. I think it's fantastic because of just, I mean, it's a Hollywood film, so there's little license here and all that, but just to show, how he came up, it just says everything as to, who he became later. That's the whole deal. The older I get now, the more I realize is you are who the people who brought you up. You are those people. You are the situations you found yourself in as a kid. You are the things you saw, the people you saw, what they said, how they did it. All those things affect you, And so I think that's really the key. If you, obviously, if you're just a very, very well-educated jazz player, it might not be the thing that translates to people, because it might be just too dry or something. It might be too...
You want to take a guess at who that is?
Well, yeah, I know who it is.
You know who it is?
Yeah, I think I know. I recognize this voice.
Oh, my.
Man, but I just can't put a name with the voice, but damn, I know the sound of this voice.
Okay, well, no, it's fine. I don't think you should have any reason to know the voice. He, in fact, was taken to Snug Harbor last year by a dear friend of mine, Dr. Rob Finefield, an optometrist in Los Angeles. That was the voice of Jim Keltner.
Wow.
And
how articulate.
I want you, I mean, listen, Keltner was sitting in the front row of the Dragonwick Club in Los Angeles when he was a teenager, watching Bobby Hutcherson and Charles Lloyd, and Lloyd dubbed them the modern jazz sextet. So, I mean, Keltner was a freakish jazz player, and then he made a left turn into the studios. But he brought up, I just want you to talk about the idea you are who the people that you surrounded yourself with. I just found the whole thing to be profound, and I wanted to play that for you and let you extrapolate any way you wanted to on what he was talking about.
Yeah. Oh, wow, man. For sure, without a doubt, you are a product of the people, the place, the air, the food. You're a product of that. You're an extension of that. I'm not anybody special. I'm not any original composer, creator of something that's never been done before. I'm not the best. I'm merely represent the people and things that I have been exposed to, all my younger and older and future life. I'm only really part of that. If I try to take myself away from it, then you start to borderline into narcissism and ego tripping, and then you get further away from the sound of the music at the moment that you're playing with the people. At the second you're on, the switch turns on. You can't do both. You can't have an ego and a personality and an identity and an agenda, and I think that does harm to the collective music process machine. That when guys get together and they play music together, it's a very big word. There's a whole lot of difference between me just playing my instrument and me playing with people. And you are a part. And that's when you have to learn how to check that. You can be egotistical and narcissistic when you're not playing, if you want to be. But when you sit down and play, bro, you have to, to make it to sound good, to even think that you can walk away from the stage after the gig and say, "Boy, I think I played well tonight." To even come close to that sentence, you have to go into the gig or the situation with no head. So to walk away from a gig and say on a thing and say to myself, "I was great, I did a good job," would probably be a little off. It probably wouldn't be a valid entry, because it means that I was thinking about what I was playing, or I was judging myself, or I was doing two things at one time. There's no way I can be part of the process with the people, the little one, the little brace that I am on if the music looks like a table and it has a brace on a leg, if that's what I am in the band, at brace, then that's what I have to do. I'm not the whole table.
Well, let me
walk away from it and say to myself anything about myself, because that immediately would be telling me that, Johnny, you just played the gig and you didn't play it well because you went into it, and you coming out of it making judgments and opinions about what you did and what you played. It's too late to do anything about what you screwed up, and and you can't be thinking about what you're gonna do, because you don't know what they're gonna do. Even if it's music you rehearse, you don't know which mistake he's gonna make or which mistake you're gonna make. Even though we rehearse this music, somebody's gonna make a mistake. It's inevitable, and so it's a waste of time to indulge yourself in yourself. It is a total waste of time if you play music in a band, especially in the nature of my instrument, in the accompaniment role, like a accompanist piano, accompanist guitar player, or accompanying bass player, accompanying drummer. You're accompanying somebody, and it has to be a whole thing, a whole pie. You don't just throw a bunch of pepperonis on some dough. It's got to be balanced. And you got to take your ego out of the picture.
Well, okay, but let me ask you about you talk about playing together. And how essential that is, playing together. When you went to New York the first time and lost, did you just feel that what you just riffed on for 5 minutes was not necessarily present in the music scenes when you left the bastion of New Orleans? You are a product of you go way back in the lineage of New Orleans. You obviously found a lot of harmony
Yes.
in the motherland of, or your motherland, your heritage of Italy. Okay, but really, New York, L.A. Did you not? Is that one reason you just had to go back to New Orleans, because that conversation that you're talking about was really where it's at? Understanding mistakes are going to be made, leaving, getting out of the way of yourself, not thinking during the music, all that stuff. Is there validity to that, in the sense that when you went to those places, even though you were new and you didn't know anybody, you felt like the vibe and what the whole purpose of the conversation wasn't really happening?
Well, do you mean, like, for example, when I was in New York, did I feel different? Is that what you mean?
I mean, like you know.
Explain it to me again.
I will. Yeah. Well, no, because you were waxing.
Complex.
It is. Well, you were waxing.
Started off by saying the first time I went to New York.
And I always try to remember. My feeling is that you went when you were really young, or the only time you had a chance to go when you were young. You know, it started by what we were talking about. Really, was the idea of being a product of the experiences that you're around, the people you're around. That's what Keltner was talking about. Keltner came up with Jimmy Karstein and Leon Russell and J.J. Cale, all those guys and all the jazzers. But you came up with all your peers in New Orleans, and it's just, that's just you, man. I mean, you exude that. You talked about the food and the culture, and I just wonder if that's one of the reasons that you didn't wind up going, or you didn't wind up moving and permanently staying in one of these other bastions, because collectively the whole concept of what you consider to be musical conversation didn't feel right. That's kind of what I was getting at.
Well, I would say, okay, I got you. Not exactly. No, I don't think that I stayed here or reasons I came back here when I was living in other places or trying to begin to live in other places. That they were always related to. Of course, I want to go back. You know, I would just have this longing. You know, I'd say, oh well, I think it's time to go back. You know, I need to go back to New Orleans. You know, this is not everything I thought it would be.
Exactly.
I don't necessarily know if it's my cup of tea. Timing's not right. You know, things like that. Then, you know, as time did go by and my life changed and I grew up a lot, I realized that, you know, we're not really that far apart anyway, you know. I can really get to New York in no time if I need to. But do I want to live there? Not anymore. You know, when I was young, when I was young and I moved to Los Angeles and tried to live there, I tried. You know, I did some sessions, I did some gigs, but the shoe didn't fit. As far as my job, my work was okay. You know, I mean, as far as what I was doing, you know, I mean, it was anything else I would be doing. Somebody called me to do a demo record session for 4 pop tunes. You know, I mean, I get that work here too, you know.
Absolutely.
I do that work here too, you know. So what I was doing in L.A. and, you know, after I decided to, you know, try to move there, as opposed to what I was doing in New Orleans, I was definitely having more fun in New Orleans. The most fun I ever had playing music in many places that I tried is New Orleans. You know, it's maybe because I'm just used to this below sea level thing. Maybe it's because of my friends. Maybe it's because of the people. And did you go back because of the people or the food? You know, that could have been a very well subconscious deciding factor that said, Johnny, go home. You know, you could be right. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, I never thought about it before till you brought it up just now. but it could very well be. You know, you could very well fall in love with, you know, get used to doing the feel of things. You know.
Well, I mean, also like it's just so funny because there's I mean, I've been out in LA quite a bit lately, and I mean, there's so many great cats that live out there, and they, you know, and they've had you're from your generation, but you know, there's a pretentious quality, and I'm talking. I mean, Johnny Vidacovich, the studio work is one thing, and it's prodigious, and it's, but you are a live player. I mean, and you never play the same song the same way once, and it's just freaking great. And not everybody has that ability. It's a totally natural gift, kind of a unconscious or subconscious kind of thing. But you know, you go to. I remember talking to Rick Murata, the drummer, and he was like, you know, he didn't mention the guy's name, but he's like, you know, this guitar player. This is in L.A. This is a live gig. He's like, the guy came up to him. He's like, yeah, let's play some live shows. And Rick's like, okay, yeah, definitely, man. He's like, but listen, we got to cut the solos down. I don't want 20-minute. I want to, if we're going to play a 45-minute set, I want to play 20 tunes. I want to, you know, I just want to have fun. I don't want any wanking going on. The guy's like, he's like, yeah, no problem, definitely. So they do rehearsal, and you know, everything. You know, the guy is right on it, and he's saying what he needs to say in a very short period of time, and you know, Rick's feeling excited about it, and he's like, this is great. Okay, this is great, and then they get to the gig, and the first tune, the guy is going on and on and on. Rick's yelling, stop. I mean, it was a disaster. And it was kind of like, and I don't want to paint with a broad brush because there is a very fascinating younger scene, not really jazz scene per se, but just a younger music scene in Los Angeles. But it's this sort of pretentious vibe to these coastal urban environments. You obviously live in a coastal urban environment, but the last word I would ever use for anything in New Orleans is pretentious. I mean, it is the most even-keeled, just be yourself kind of town. And
I think so.
And I think that's you know, also just extrapolating on what Keltner was saying, not so much Miles, because okay, so Miles respected Gil Evans because they could go to Gil's pad and Gil could really teach him about writing and harmony. It wasn't like in a classroom environment. Coltrane obviously knew all the scales and his horn was always in his mouth. But, you know, I mean, those guys, you know, they did not, I hate to keep badgering this, but they were not strictly academic. They didn't come out of the academy. I mean, they came out of on the bandstand, and you know, I guess with younger cats, I you know, do you feel it's some of the, you know, because you're having a ball, and you know, you can kind of choose and pick and choose the gigs you want to play, and you're playing with iconic figures and younger figures, and you know, we led in with this insane jam, the Chicken with O'Teal and Kofi Burbridge, rest in peace, and Johnny.
That was Kofi.
Well, we're gonna get to Kofi. We're gonna get to Kofi before the show is over. But Medeski, I mean, you're playing with everybody. But how do today those younger cats? They didn't go on the road with King Curtis. They didn't go on the road with Harry Belafonte. They weren't in the studio scenes. They don't have a broad palette of experiential learning. So, I mean, is there any kind of, what do you do for cats that are clearly, that have been just marinating in the academy and have just not enough grease on their palate?
I try to get them outside of their comfort zone, and it's very difficult because academia creates comfort zones, and if you're uncomfortable in a zone, what academia does is try to clear it up for you to ease your uncomfortability, and you know, and giving you the knowing the knowledge that maybe even the certain knowledge that even a guy who didn't have any academia in his existence, in his life, in his growth, but yet he has this knowledge of you know through experience and time and trial and error. and then you have another guy who is in an academic situation who learns these things not through trial and error, but through, someone showing them, teaching them, leading them, showing them how to work the problem to figure out the answer themselves. I think what I do is just try to get them slightly outside of the comfort zone in order that they might not play something that comes from deep within, and not so much from the knowledge that has been accumulated and and proven to be useful, and it just is not something that it is something that they didn't put in the textbook. To me, that's what I try to do. I try to get guys to come out of their little, I know this, if I put, in comfort zone, try to get them to come out of that I know what works comfort zone thing to taking chances and seeing, hoping that something comes out that's deep within, something that they never knew they even felt.
You do that.
It does with me.
Yeah.
It does with me. So I know it does with other people, because I can see and hear people over a 40-something, 50-something year period, and I can say, that motherfucker, he hit the spot. He hit the spot.
I love
accident,
it.
He was going through his tricks and stuff, and somebody forgot to put up one of the boards, and he had to pull a fast one, and he had to come out with something he had never come out with before. You see what I'm saying? You can walk the tightrope with the net, or you can walk the tightrope with no net.
Is it fair to say that you would do this with a younger cat on the bandstand, no heads up, and nothing?
I would.
Right. So this is not like something that you'd, get together and.
It was done to me. It was done to me all my life.
Can you give an example of when it was done to you?
Well, when I was 16 years old, I was working down in the French Quarter, backing up strippers, playing with men that were, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60-year-old men who've been doing this all their life. Don't you think they had a ball with me, fucking with me when I was 16, 17, 18 years old, playing behind strip teasers, pre-go-go dances? Shit, they had a ball with me. They played so many jokes on me, and told me, one guy would tell me one thing, and another guy would turn around and tell me just the opposite, knowing that the other guy told me the other thing.
Right, that's like the Nat Adderley story. Yeah.
Three-way mess with each other.
Yeah, I love it.
Two of them would be messing with me while they were messing with each other. Tell the drummer this, tell the drummer that. Tell the drummer this, tell the drummer that. They messing with each other at the same time they messing with me. So I mean, and in the meantime, some very early, young, of playing stuff came out of me and was taught to me through those jokes and messing with you or whatever it is thing, guys trying to, cutting you, putting you down when they really don't, and then another guy walking right behind you and say, well, what he just told you is a bunch of jive, because this cat is really can't play this and can't play that and can't do this, but he's telling you that just because he knows you're a young cat and he's messing with your head so he can get the up and up on you before you get the up and up on him, because he ain't all that happening. So he's going to mess with you.
When Johnny Vidacovich was 16, was hitting the moves of the dancers, and
that's right.
Okay, now you had two dudes telling you completely polar opposite things, and they're basically getting themselves off, and they're screwing with you.
Right.
And you're still in your head. You're 16. You haven't dropped to your heart or your soul at that point, so to speak, in the music. So what did you do at that point? Did you just say, I'm going to play what I think is right? I'm not going to...
Well, of course, I would try to do both. And
that wouldn't work.
It was always right, or somebody would always have something to say throw it in, but that's when they would be messing with each other, using you as a kickball, you see? And so I had to figure that out quickly. That's one thing I had to figure out quickly. And some fine old men told me, Johnny, this is what's happening. Johnny, this is what's happening. Playing kickball with you. Yeah, and so, that's why I always hung out with older cats. Because at some point they're going to tell you the truth.
So
it's a fine older gentleman, and I lucked out.
This whole idea of you had to know, you had to have a huge bag of tunes, and everything from rock and R&B to jazz standards. And I just interviewed Gary Barone, and Gary teaches improvisation in Germany right now. He's a trumpet player, and this is what he said. And I'm going to ask you about 2 words after it, and then you can just riff on these words, because to me it's there's nothing worse in my mind than going to see a show and it's a total formula trip. It could be a band that thinks they have to play the tunes exactly the way they are on the album, or what it comes down to is with more with jazz, where the cats back, you'd leave the head of the tune and then you'd improvise, and so that song was never the same way, the tempo was never the same, the changes were never the same. And so what he said was, this is what Barone said. He goes, I first started listening to bebop when my brother, Mike, brought home J.J. Johnson and Kai Winding.
Wow, that's my early experiences too.
I know you have it. He goes, this was his quote. He goes, wow, this isn't Dixieland. The rhythm section was totally modern. But this is the important part. This is what he tells the students. You have to spend some time with the melody, because mostly you're playing, and these are the 2 words I want Vidacovich to think about. Most of the time you're playing themes and variations. The theme is the melody, not in all cases, but in many cases. Miles played 7 nights a week, so the tunes changed based on themes and variations. If you listen to Coltrane, he'll play a melody, and then he'll go off on 16-note tangent, and he might play 2 bars of the melody in the middle of his solo, which shows that he had the melody impressed into his existence. So I want you to just riff. I don't care where you go with it. Themes and variations. All of a sudden, it's becoming very clear to me. There's a couple of things that are becoming more clear to me. Themes and variations are the key to original improvisation. Go.
Yes. There was something on Facebook last week, and it was something about 5. Name what you need to know to. What is it you need to know to be a good improviser? As a drummer, playing music, to play music and improvise, you have a couple of disadvantages. One disadvantage is you have no notes. Okay, keep that in mind.
That's right.
Now
okay.
Let's go.
Yep.
Let's talk about one thing you have to know and learn and be good at to be a good improviser is know the melody. Know the melody, play the melody, be able to play the melody, and surrender yourself to that melody so that as you improvise, you sort of rearranging the melody. You're playing the same notes, but you're playing different rhythms and different notes in front of them and behind the melody notes, Know the melody to the point where you can really make variations on it. Yeah, and refer in order to connect with everybody, especially the audience, when you feel to or you need to, or if you need to refresh, or if you're in between, some very improvised chaos, to go back and refer to that melody quickly really helps. Is like talking to the listener, and like you and I having a conversation. And before I go any further, I would say, "Okay, Jake, do you understand what I'm saying?"
Exactly. I love it. Yeah, I dig.
And then I got to make sure we're all on track, and then I continue. So I'm constantly improvising on a melody. Me personally, having the drums and no notes, I really refer to the rhythm of the melody as much as possible, because I have no notes that can grab the listener's ear to let him, to give them some sense of tonality, either in a harmonic or a melodic way. I can't do that, so I have to use melodic rhythm usually in good old spaces, places where you breathe. This gives the listener a chance to be with you when you take that breath, when you leave that space. When you refer to the melody, it's sort of like a little landing ground for a second before you take off again. So for me, improvising is really knowing the melody and how to play around with it, how to get away from it and come back to it smoothly, how to take off and land. Those are the two important things about soloing, taking off and landing. Starting and finishing, I think.
Can you actually only learn that on the bandstand? Can you really ever learn that in academia, or only on the bandstand?
Well, I mean, you pull it off on a bandstand, and you see what your results are on a bandstand.
Right.
And this way, you see if what you've been practicing and how you've been practicing, how you've been thinking. It's more of a thinking thing than it is actual practice thing. The playing thing. You're practicing more about your philosophical approach to. If anything, for me, it's more effectual when I do it away from the drums than I just do it with my mouth. If I take a simple melody and start to make variations on it without getting lost. If I do it all with my mouth and my stomach.
Wow.
Take a nice deep breath and sing, da 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 tu tu da 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 budu bada bada chip pull up slap buda ba digga digga do da buda deep up chip I get misty when I'm down rap 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 bap 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 baga ga biddle bap silly bap bap jigga jigga ba da 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 da. Practicing with my stomach and my mouth, so that when I'm hitting the drums, it's not important that I look at what I hit or think of what the sound of the cymbal is, but I'm thinking of what's in my stomach and in my chest and in my throat, and follow that. With big ears open all the time, and probably hollering at the bass player, help me out. In other words, play some notes. I don't like it because I don't like drum solos. I like somebody to be playing with me if I got a solo. I don't like drum solos at all because I'm soloing the whole time anyway. It sounds like,
absolutely, dude. Yeah,
when I play with guys like Astro Project, it's like a continuous. I have the freedom of a solo. Of course, I'm not soloing in context, but I'm soloing as far as improvising goes. Between my hands, with the ideas. I'm not playing the exact same little rhythm or 2-bar pattern over and over. Man, it's changing. From measure to measure to measure, from night to night to night. So. When you get up on a bandstand, you'll see from the reaction of your bandmates in the audience how well you can keep them. You can never play the melody enough times. On good songs.
Yeah, of course. I got another voice to play for you. I think it's going to hit close to home, and we'll come back and break it down.
Yeah, those things had quite a bit to do with it. And again, I say even the tuning of instruments, because things became so, you read a meter to get things done, whereas you used to read your heart. And then some of that, what you found in the tuning, is what made you you. But after a while, we begin to look at a needle, and when it comes up, everyone sees that same perfectly A440, and now we're ready to go. And I'm not saying that it would be good to play auto-tune, but auto-tune isn't always auto-tune.
Explain. Yeah, all right. I really, for myself, I think I love that saying, but what meaning is that? What does that mean?
Well, it's just that once you begin to operate on this very thin, straight line, and that's what say, now we're ready to go. You're ready to go because that dictated that it's ready to go. Now, that is correct that it is totally in tune, but if you're not careful, your life can become that way, your life of music.
You want to take a guess at who that is?
Man, at first I thought it was Alan Toussaint.
Oh, you got it. Ding, ding. Winner. November 2nd, 2014, my interview with Alan Toussaint. And, Johnny, one area of your career that we haven't vetted a lot, it's in your record collection a lot, but again, he's talking about this whole idea of in the past you read your heart. Again, people tune their drums. Drumming is a little bit different, but he's talking about more like instrument soloing, saxophones or guitars or whatever. And now we use a tuner. And if you are always predicating your tuning based on that thin line, then your life of music becomes that. And I'd love you to talk about some of these blues cats that you played with, or anybody for that matter, that before the meter, who tuned to their heart, and how it worked out so beautifully. Because, we're adhering now to technology in order to say, well, it's time to go. Nobody wants to play out of tune, but everybody has their own tuning. And I think it's something that when he said that, it floored me.
Yeah, it's definitely about following your heart and in your head what you hear and the voice, and trying to make the compromise between what is materialistically solid yeses and nos, and what's creatively inside of your heart and your mind, something you want to say yes or this or that, and you're making a compromise between you're trying to make a fine line of balance between what could possibly be right and what could possibly be left. There's a middle, but the middle itself, you want to even give the middle itself some room to have a right and a left. If you take the line and you say this is the middle of the line, that's the right, that's the left, and in the middle is the middle. Then you take and you isolate that middle, and it has a right and a left. And it can be delicately used in order to, make the scale just slightly go. And so you do have room. Yeah, the machine is definitely going to make it very vertical and say it's either right or wrong. But human beings perceive the middle. They don't know it. But they think of the middle as having sides too. But they don't know it.
I love it. You are waxing poetic right now. This is unreal.
They don't know it. They'll swear that, the middle can only be this vertical line with no right and no left. No, we don't act like that. We don't talk like that. We don't work like that. When a television man comes to fix your television, it could be just like the one he left a half
Right,
an hour
right,
ago.
right.
It could be the same brand, same model, same problem. But him being a smart technician, it's something else. It's definitely different from the last one. It's not exactly just click in this part and everything will be fine. Like turn on this tuner and get your horn totally in tune. It might not be in tune with everybody else. If everybody doesn't sit around the same tuner at the same time, that means they all got one note in tune with each other. And the instruments aren't made fine enough that you can just press a button and the next note is immediately played perfect in tune. If you're a trumpet player, you're constantly adjusting your lips and your embouchure. I don't care if we're all tuned up to the electronic tuner before the gig, it's still the amount of, your embouchure of your mouth, is going to affect the tuning as you play. The muscles in your mouth are, tuning is only one note. You're still going to, we're wider than we think. And we do wider things than we think we do because we're always trying to stay straight and in tune, which is a good thing, but it's a wavy thing. It's like water. Still water even has in a lake on a calm day. It's rolling, it's moving, and so is music and pitch and the way we play with one another. That's constantly rolling and changing and allowing us to expand our version of the pitch. Listen to Ella Fitzgerald and Louis Armstrong. Are you going to say Louis Armstrong is out of tune? That's Louis Armstrong, bro.
That's right. That's well, but that's when Alan said, if you're not careful, then that tuning becomes your entire musical existence. And I'm like, wow, maybe that's why I can't tell who anybody is anymore. Because they're, you know what I'm trying to say? Like everybody got their individual sound because you were tuning to your heart. I mean, can you go back? Some of these sessions, and I can't remember the Blues Cats, these local Louisiana sessions, Johnny playing drums on these blues sessions. I mean, could you point to a time early on when there were no meters, there's no, and people had to find that middle, that human middle with the left and the right, and it worked. And I just want to let people know that it might take a little more time, but that's truly the essence of music. You don't tune to a meter, you tune to your heart. And if you believe in yourself enough and you have enough experience, even if you play a wrong note, everyone's going to make a mistake once in a while. That's the way to do it.
Yeah. And your heart, you tune to your heart, and your heart is pretty complete on its own. It has an ear, too. Your heart, without using your ears, your heart will use its ear to pick up on the people you're playing with at that moment and pick up and try to look for the ear to their heart. And the ears of our hearts will hook up.
Wow.
If we let them.
Right, you have to let it. You have to let it happen.
But if we start sticking the machine down and everybody tunes to the machine, if you keep doing that, you're never gonna allow that your inner heart to go searching for the guy next to you's inner heart ear. You got to allow yourself. You got to let go of the reins sometimes and allow your body and your soul and your heart to do what they want to do, instead of trying to constantly keep control over the situation. That does more harm for improvising and improvisers than good. That's the worst thing in the world, is trying to keep control of things, to over control. That's the problem. And that's when you get blockage, and the blockage to move forward with your improvising or your musicality or your musicianship or your playing, your performance. To move forward, if you got these blockage, of constantly, just exactly like 2 Cent said, man, it can really stop you, it can stop you.
Yeah, I think it makes your music. I mean, it either is going to make you you're going to burn out real quick, or you're going to go through this really incredibly superficial musical life that is
waste a whole lot of time.
I mean, have you seen? I mean, we're only a weekend into the season so far. The Tigers, we're going to be really good in like 2 years. We have a farm system that's just going to be thriving, but right now we're just a smorgasbord of unknowns. We are 2-2, but have you seen any plays defensively or based on or just batter vis-a-vis pitcher batter that you can correspond to the flow of music?
Adrian Beltre.
Is he still play? Is he still playing?
No, he retired.
Okay, I was gonna say. Have you?
I mean,
he retired a while ago. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, just go move one base over and look at fucking Rudnick Odor.
Right.
He's like incredible defensive player, incredible batter. His defensive playing is some of the best I've ever. Up in the air, 3 feet to catch a ball that everybody thinks he's going to go over his head out in the center field. And Rudy jump up in the air and throw it to first base before he comes down with his feet on the ground.
Themes and variations.
Man, there is so much music in a baseball game. I mean, it's just a constant source of music and improvising. There's a lot of improvising going on. I know it doesn't look like it, same old thing over and over, throw the ball, but you don't know, man. That curve of the ball, the curve of the bat, the angles, the speed, anything can happen.
Well, I mean, just the idea that the idea of improvising and dancing off of second base, trying to get a lead, that improvisation distracts the pitcher, who then balks in the winning run. I mean, it happens all the time.
Yep, sure does.
Do you think that the cat you were talking about, the shortstop, is he better than Ozzie Smith?
Time has changed. And,
You're right.
I can't make the comparison. I can't make the comparison because I haven't watched in detail enough in the past of Ozzie.
Right.
Now that I'm learning finally how to watch more detailed stuff when I'm watching a baseball game, I'm just learning. I'm taking the time now in my life to do it. I'm reading books on baseball. I'm watching as much baseball as I can. I'm trying to stick to following the Texas Rangers. That way I get to know them, and I can see the fineness and the offness and the onness and the in tune and the out of tune. And, you can see how one guy compensates for another. When, so if I never had a job, if I didn't have to work, and I would probably spend a whole lot of time watching baseball.
No, but you said it best, man.
If you work and you play music, you can't follow all of baseball because they're playing so many games every day. It's impossible. So you have to pick and choose what you're going to follow or what you're going to spend your time doing. So I picked the Texas Rangers.
I love that you picked. I mean, it's so great because you can DVR that after a gig at Snug or whatever, and come home and just watch the first 3 innings and pass out. And ideally, you get a day game. And you got a gig that night, so you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. But also, what's cool for me about Texas and convenient for me about Texas, this is also why I followed the Chicago Cubs back in the 80s, because they had now on this cable television we getting the Texas Rangers baseball station. So. television games.
Well, you got W. So
like
you were
one
saying
of
in
the
the
regular
'80s though. In the '80s, you had WGN, right? You were watching Sean Dunston.
Right.
Sean
Back
Dunston.
Then, yeah, back then on UHF, and when you had UHF, we used to get Channel 38 from Chicago, so I followed the Cubs. You know.
Before I let you go, Johnny, we let in with the chicken and this guy on YouTube.
Yeah.
This guy on YouTube, by the way, unfortunately, spelled your name without an H. So a lot of people that should.
Cool. That's cool. In Yugoslavia, it doesn't have an H.
It doesn't have an H. Okay, so the chicken, Johnny Vidacovich Trio +1 was my man, a guy who I never had the chance to meet personally. Did a nice radio interview with him, and he was a beautiful cat, is Kofi Burbridge, and he left us tragically, and I just kind of wanted you to reflect on the Burbridge lineage and Kofi at large.
Well, the first time I met Kofi, he was staying at our house for about a week or so. He was in New Orleans, and he stayed here with us, and so we got to sit around, sit around the sofa, and all day, during the days, and we had long talks about everything, and he and O'Teal had already spent a couple of weeks here at my house when he was in town. O'Teal, had already been here for a long time, and everybody gets along. He's very polite, very polite, very nice to be around, very smooth, genius player, genius level player, beyond a norm.
You're talking about Kofi.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean Kofi was on the bandstand at 13 with Donald Byrd.
Yeah, he wasn't normal at all.
He wasn't your pedestrian 250 hitter, man, in baseball. He was hitting.
No. He was really pleasant to be around because he wasn't frivolous, and he was very expressive. We talked about different things, beyond music, just like people, and it was just really pleasant to be around, man. Wonderful player. Great to be on the bandstand with him because he could play anything, and could also knew how to step back and get somebody else to step forward. He knew how to do that move.
Well, that's just what you were talking about.
Making another cat feel comfortable playing while you're playing with him.
I love it. No, dude, it's like someone boots a ground ball, runners in scoring position, and Kofi bails him out with a game save with a great cat. I mean, he's always picking people up, and he knows how to facilitate the conversation because the guy did. Yes. The guy played with everyone from Donald Byrd to MC Hammer to Whitney Houston. He was in all these. He played with Jocko's son, obviously. What's cool is that him and O'Teal really learned a lot from each other. It just speaks to education. I mean, those guys, their family rooted them in their cultural heritage and where they came from. And, I miss him dearly, man. He's with the Better Angels now.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. I mean, the tickets are absolutely astronomical for whatever fest, the Jazz Fest or whatever it is.
They nuts. Yeah, they nuts.
It's out of control. But I'm coming back probably in the swamps of August. I'm coming back to see Johnny V. Have some cappuccinos. We'll go back to that Italian restaurant.
Yeah.
I love you, man. I always love your point of view. And you know what, man? Every time, every note, every expression you play is lending itself to further conversation. And all I want to get back to is Paul Motian, Scotty LaFaro, and Bill Evans. The closer we can get to that conversation, the closer we're going to get to Alice in Wonderland. So you just keep going.
Yeah.
You send my love to Deborah, and we'll do it again, brother.
Bro.
We'll do it again, baby.
I will, bro. Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah, man. And keep me in the loop.
Thanks so much, Jake.
Hey, man. Much love to you, Johnny V. Talk to you soon.
And keep me abreast of what's going on.
I got to tell you something. I just want to tell you one. I mean, I know it might be a stretch, but out of the blue, Greg Arico and Michael Shreve recommended me. I'm doing a full weekend Woodstock 50th Q&A at the Brava Theater in San Francisco, 400-seater. I'm going to be interviewing Michael Arico. If you're free that weekend, come out and be my guest, man. Come see Jake. That's going to be prime time Jake Feinberg at the Brava Theater.
And what's the date of that?
July 13th weekend in San Fran. I'll give you more details. I'm just saying. And also a book is beginning to formulate volume 1, which you're going to be part of. There's a lot of cool shit going down, but that thing is going to be the biggest exposure for the Jake Feinberg show yet. I'll give you details if you and Deborah want to take a road trip out there.
That would be great, man. Give me the details and keep me posted.
Love you, brother.
All right, peace out.
Peace out, baby. Johnny Vidacovich, part 4 in the books. More enlightenment, more rhythm. Rhythm is love. I'm off to the vortex. Until next time, peace.